Welcome to Work Comp Talk, a podcast dedicated to all the injured workers in California. My name is Carmen, your host, and joining me is my co-host Bilal Kassem, also managing attorney of Pacific Workers, the Lawyers for Injured Workers, with headquarters in the city of Oakland and offices throughout Northern California. They also happen to be our sponsors for today's show. Make sure you check them out at pacificworkers.com if you're looking for legal counsel in regards to an injury you might have had in your workplace. Today is very close to tax season. It's tax season time, and what better conversation than to have the one where a lot of people ask, are certain benefits in the workers' comp system taxable? So due to the fact that we have a lawyer today, we are going to talk about taxes and workers' comp. So join us in this conversation. If you have questions, make sure you notify us on the comments. And while you're at it, hit the bell subscription so that you can get notified every time we upload a new episode. So Bilal, have you done your taxes, personal taxes yet?
Absolutely. As much as it pains me, I pay my taxes just like everyone should. You know, everyone hates taxes, but at the end of the day, it's why we have roads, why we have police officers, why we have firefighters, why we have teachers. You know, it's.
I mean, I'll question a few of those things, but
everyone's got their flavor. But we all enjoy driving our cars on our nice roads, and we like going and having nice things. And I think taxes contribute to a lot of that. So there's certainly probably some mismanagement, and maybe some people who don't pay enough, and maybe some people who pay too much. Mm-hmm. But I think, you know, we can all agree that there's some continuity that we need in our lives. And so taxes are kind of just that necessary evil.
Yeah, it's kind of like you would have to first go out of the country and realize what it's like to not have nice streets to then realize how beautiful our streets are, despite whether there's garbage or not, graffiti or not. It's like, you know, my parents are from Mexico, and a lot of their streets are literally just rocks. Try walking in rocks for a period of time. Like, it hurts.
Yeah, I mean, we live in a village, right? We're just sophisticated villagers now, and we have bigger and better infrastructure. We're not living in huts and stuff, and it's not every man for themselves, right? We all rely on each other at some point for something, and I think taxes are just an extension of that. So as much as it pains us sometimes, you know, we do what we got to do.
Exactly. So, given the fact that we're talking about taxes, I know there's a lot of questions that we've received in the past in regards to, you know, I'm getting some money or I'm getting something out of workers' comp, and we do live in the United States. Some states are very taxable in every way, shape, or form. I mean, you go to the store and you get taxed. You go put gas, you get taxed. So obviously there is that misconception or just curiosity of, oh my God, I'm getting money. Am I going to be taxed on it? So if someone is going through the workers' compensation system and they're going to receive money via settlement, say, is it taxable?
I think it's important to kind of understand the benefits for the history of it all. And, you know, workers' comp, it's a benefits delivery system. It's not supposed to be an income system. It's not considered wages and things like that, you know. There are a couple different benefits you get in workers' comp. You get temporary disability, which is wage loss. It's supposed to be a replacement for the wages that you would have earned have you been able to work. And so looking at temporary disability first, you can say that, yes, it technically is a wage replacement, but the way it's calculated kind of takes into account the fact that there are taxes. So, for example, temporary disability is calculated at 2/3 of your average weekly wage. And the whole idea is that they're not paying you your gross pre-tax wage. They're paying you something that should equate to somewhat of an equivalent post-tax wage. And so it's kind of built into the insurance carrier's obligation there. The other type of benefit, permanent disability, it's a benefit that's designed to compensate you because your lost ability to function, not your lost earnings, not your wages while you're out recovering, but it's supposed to be a bodily injury form of compensation. And so it's not considered a wage. And so the rates and such, they're not based on what your earnings are necessarily. There's some limitations that are fixed around your earnings, but the benefit's there because you're hurt and you're suffering and you're physically unable to work like you used to. And so you get that benefit. Again, that's not a wage per se.
Right. It's related to the injury in the body part and not necessarily your job.
Exactly. And so temporary disability, just like permanent disability, aren't taxable. They're not considered income in California, even though to some extent they're loosely tied to your income and your ability to work. They're not income. So Federal government and state California don't look at it and say, give us our share too.
That's good, because I mean, at the end of the day, the amount you actually get, it's not like, oh my God, a lot, you know?
No, you're not winning the lotto in a workers' comp case. I mean, maybe, depending on the adjuster or the attorneys involved and stuff like that, maybe you get a bit of a windfall, but no one's, retiring early and happy about it because they got injured.
Right.
But,
So you're talking about temporary disability, permanent disability. What about just in general, the medical stuff, the medical treatment and all that benefits that you get?
so when you're going through a workers' comp case, insurance pays for your medical treatment, the value of which is not taxable. You're just getting the medical care for free. And if you choose to settle your case at the end of the day and you receive a payment for the value of your future medical care, meaning you don't want to deal with the insurance company more, they don't want to deal with you, so they buy out your medical, that is also considered a personal injury award in California. And the government has looked at that and said, well, this money is supposed to go towards your health and welfare. Like, we're not going to take our tax money from this. And so those are exempt from taxes as well. So.
They want to take dibs on the amount of money that you need to pay for your surgery. Yeah, we're going to tax you for that surgery, sir.
Yeah. No, it's not. That would be a sad outcome.
It would.
45% of your money that's allocated towards medical is going towards taxes. That's not a good outcome for the injured worker, unfortunately. And, there's other types of benefits as well involved in cases. They have something called a supplemental job displacement voucher, which is a reimbursement for up to $6,000 for job retraining or education-related expenses. State of California can also provide you up to $5,000. They call it a supplemental or return to work supplement, which is supposed to be a piggyback to that voucher if you lose your job. Both those benefits are not taxable as well. Those are just payments to you or reimbursements to you. That's it, 100% yours.
Nice. That's good to know. I think a lot of people would think I have to report this some way, shape, or form when I'm doing my taxes, even though it's not taxable. And obviously it makes sense, right? It's kind of like they would eventually kick you while you're already down if they had to tax you. And that would totally suck. Do they in any way, shape, or form still have to report it even though it's not taxable?
And yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because you should be cautious about that, right? If you, for example, are claiming a certain income level and you deposit a check for some amount of money and you're not disclosing what that's from, and the IRS looks at it and says, well, this looks like income, there may be some confusion. Or maybe if you're receiving benefits from other sources, Social Security or something like that, and you deposit this big check and there's no explanation where it's from or what it's for, whatever that agency or entity is that's providing that benefit, that may cause problems. And so you want to obviously disclose that you have that income and what it's for. I shouldn't call it income, that money.
Right.
But, it's not a taxable source of money. It's just you want to be clear about what it is.
What it's for, what it's meant for. And
exactly.
That makes sense. So you talked about, obviously, permanent disability, temporary disability, the future medical payments you would be receiving. What if, you settle via STIPs, or you're going to obviously continue to work with the insurance company and they're going to be paying stuff? Does that affect in any way, shape, or form? Or is it still a no?
No, still a no. Still a no. The value of the medical care is not taxable. Any benefits you receive in the form of payments, whether it's before or after you settle your case, are not taxable. So, yeah, generally the answer is no.
What about if the insurance company was playing games with you and then you go and get them for penalties and sanctions and you get retroactive pay because they screwed some stuff up and they weren't paying you any temporary disability benefits while you were trying to fight your case, and then you get a check for that? Is that taxable?
Back wages may be taxable.
Okay.
If for example, you pursue a 132A claim and which is a claim for discrimination or retaliation because you're injured at work and you pursued a workers' comp case, and you go to trial and you win an award of back wages and benefits, those could be taxable.
Okay, what if these back wages are included in that lump sum payment that you get if you were to get a compromise and release or whatever? Does only that portion count, or do you get two different checks?
I will say I'm not a tax lawyer, and I'm not giving anyone listening tax advice. These are just my personal opinions and beliefs. But It depends on how you structure the settlement. If you're settling a case and maybe the value of a potential 132A claim was factored into the settlement, but no particular portion of the settlement was earmarked to cover that component of the case, and specifically the back wages component or benefits. I don't know that you could necessarily accurately assess the tax implications there. I'm not saying to hide your settlement, but I'm just saying that it may be confusing, or it can work against you. If you have a settlement that factored in a huge amount of back wages, and there's some value for the normal workers' comp case, and you're considering whether or not there's tax liability for there, and you can't honestly say that all of it's due to the workers' comp case and nothing's due to back wages, I don't know. Maybe the IRS or California might look at that. But when you're talking about back wages are typically taxable.
Because obviously that would have been considered income, right? It's a pay. It's your pay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so you don't get a windfall of not paying your taxes just because the insurance carrier is forced to pay you back. But penalties and sanctions and things like that, those aren't taxable either. We're just, when we're talking about potentially taxable events, we're talking about back wages specifically and benefits, things that would otherwise been normally taxable.
Okay, because I was thinking penalties and sanctions because they screwed up and you're getting some sort of payment because of their misconduct, I guess you can say, is not really considered a benefit. So I was just figuring maybe it might be taxable, but the answer is no.
I'm not a tax lawyer. Yeah.
So in general, for those of you who are going through a workers' compensation case and you are trying to figure out, do I have to report this? Do I have to pay taxes on this? It's definitely a great question to ask your tax person. But for the most part, it should not be taxed, specifically if it's going towards any future medical necessity or use, because technically it's for specifically that. Your medical. So why would the country go back and be like, okay, because you're going to get surgery and you got money for your surgery, you got to pay a certain amount. So it wouldn't make sense in the long run. So,
but yeah, there's certainly some other considerations, outside of the tax realm when you're getting a settlement and receiving money that people should be aware of, child support, for example.
I was going to say child support.
Child support, if you have arrears that were post-date from your date of injury, you could potentially have to pay out of your settlement to, Department of Child Support Services. Usually when we settle cases with our clients and there's child support liens, we'll negotiate with child support to try and ensure that our client at least gets, a good chunk of the money. And there are certain restrictions on how much child support can garnish. But it is still subject to child support, ultimately, at the end of the day. Social Security, disability can get a credit for settlements, and so there's ways of structuring settlements that are more financially advantageous to the client, so they don't get a huge credit. Sometimes bankruptcy comes up in workers' comp, and generally, if you disclose your workers' comp case and settlement to the bankruptcy trustee, it is also exempt from bankruptcy proceedings. Again, generally, and there's some disclosure that's required there. So, you can't just hide it and not tell anyone about it. If you are going through bankruptcy, don't hide it. But yeah, there's certainly a lot of financial considerations when you're talking about work comp benefits. Even though it's not taxable income, there are still other financial implications that go along with it.
Yeah, and I'm glad we're having this conversation because despite the taxes and despite all these questions, you brought up very important subjects right now, which is even for the smoothest case ever, meaning everything's running smooth and you feel like you've got this, you don't really need that attorney. You just mentioned there are things that you guys can work around to not allow for, say, if you were already getting EDD benefits and, like Social Security benefits, so that they wouldn't come and grab most of your settlement. If you don't know those rules and you just settle, guess what? You might be just giving all your money away and potentially getting screwed at the end of the day. So it's really important to get a free consultation and talk about this with someone who does obviously the workers' comp realm and understands, how it works, how the law works, so that you are benefiting from it or from any type of monetary compensation as much as you can. Because I've seen child support. I've heard stories where child support will even tap into people's 401k, their retirement funds, to get that money. So
yeah, and look, we're not out there trying to deprive children of their means to live, but there's certainly a balance of equities when you're talking about someone who has a very serious chronic medical condition that needs care, because guess what? If they can't get back to work, at least some form and function, there's not going to be much, if any, child support anyway. So
after the fact.
gutting their very small workers' comp settlement when they need it most isn't a good long-term play in order to support the family. So there's balance of interest there. I think, it's case by case, especially dealing with Social Security or EDD and stuff. But like I said, there's ways of structuring things to ensure that, you're maximizing each of those benefits for your best interests.
Right.
And those are tools and relationships and things that we've established over time that I think really help our clients.
Well, despite the fact that you're not a tax person and that you obviously are not sitting here telling us what to do and what not to do, I do appreciate you answering some of those questions that I do see constantly in comments. If we did not answer a question for you and you'd like to get a free consultation, please feel free to send us a message. I will personally connect you with the team and let you know that you can have this free consultation while you'll be talking about your specific case in general, and you'll get the chance to speak to an attorney as well and make those questions and then determine if you want to seek legal counsel. So that's it for taxes and workers' comp. Thank you so much, Bilal. We'll catch you guys on the next episode.